Part 2, Coming Home. In Book 13, Odysseus, laden with gifts, has returned in secret to Ithaca aboard a magically swift Phaeacian ship. In Ithaca, Athena appears to the hero. Because his home is full of enemies, she advises Odysseus to proceed disguised as a beggar. Now, Odysseus must succeed not only by physical power but also by intelligence. In Book 14, Odysseus, in his beggar's disguise, finds his way to the hut of Eumaeus, his old and trusty swineherd. Eumaeus is the very image of faithfulness in a servant, a quality much valued in Homer's society. The introduction of members of the so-called servant class as important characters is unusual in epic poetry and reflects Homer's originality. Odysseus is politely entertained by Eumaeus, but the king remains disguised from his old servant. In Book 15, Athena appears to Odysseus' son, Telemachus. The young man has gone to Pylos and Sparta to talk with his father's old comrades in hopes of finding out whether Odysseus is alive or dead. Athena advises him to return to Ithaca. The palace of Odysseus, his home, has been overrun by his mother's suitors. These arrogant men are spending money from Telemachus' inheritance on feasting and drinking, and they are demanding that his mother, Penelope, take one of them as a husband. Athena warns Telemachus that the suitors plan to ambush him. Telemachus boards a ship for home, lands secretly in Ithaca, and heads toward the hut of the swineherd. The suspense increases as father and son move closer and closer together. Homer is ready to recount what could be the most dramatic moment in the epic. Remember that Odysseus has not seen his son for 20 years. Telemachus has been away from Ithaca for a year. The meeting of father and son. But there were two men in the mountain hut, Odysseus and the swineherd. At first light, blowing their fire up, they cooked their breakfast and sent their lads out, driving herds to root in the tall timber. When Telemachus came, the wolfish troop of watchdogs only fawned on him as he advanced. Odysseus heard them go and heard the light crunch of a man's footfall, at which he turned quickly to say, "Eumaeus, here is one of your crew come back, or maybe another friend. The dogs are out there, snuffling belly down. Not one has even growled. I can hear footsteps." But before he finished, his tall son stood at the door. The swineherd rose in surprise, letting a bowl and jug tumble from his fingers. Going forward, he kissed the young man's head, his shining eyes, and both hands, while his own tears brimmed and fell. Think of a man whose dear and only son, born to him in exile, reared with labor, has lived 10 years abroad, and now returns. How would that man embrace his son? Just so the herdsman clapped his arms around Telemachus and covered him with kisses, for he knew the lad had got away from death. He said, "Light of my days, Telemachus, you made it back. When you took ship for Pylos, I never thought to see you here again. Come in, dear child, and let me feast my eyes. Here you are, home from the distant places. How rarely, anyway, you visit us, your own men, and your own woods and pastures. Always in the town, a man would think you loved the suitors' company, those dogs." Telemachus, with his clear candor, said, "I am with you, uncle. See now, I have come because I wanted to see you first, to hear from you if mother stayed at home, or is she married off to someone, and Odysseus' bed left empty for some gloomy spider's weaving?" Gently the forester replied to this, "At home indeed your mother is, poor lady, still in the women's hall. Her nights and days are wearied out with grieving." Stepping back, he took the bronze-shod lance, and the young prince entered the cabin over the worn door-stone. Odysseus moved aside, yielding his couch, but from across the room Telemachus checked him. "Friend, sit down. We'll find another chair in our own hut. Here is the man to make one." The swineherd, when the quiet man sank down, built a new pile of evergreens and fleeces, a couch for the dear son of great Odysseus, then gave him trenchers of good meat left over from the roast pork of yesterday, and heaped up willow baskets full of bread and mixed an ivy bowl of honey-hearted wine. Then he in turn sat down, facing Odysseus. Their hands went out upon the meat and drink as they fell to, ridding themselves of hunger. Not realizing that the stranger is his father, Telemachus tries to protect him as best he can. He says that the beggar cannot stay in the palace hall because the drunken suitors will abuse him. The swineherd is sent to Penelope with news of her son's return. At this point, Athena can no longer stand the suspense. She appears and turns to Odysseus, who was still in beggar's rags. She tipped her golden wand upon the man, making his cloak pure white, and the knit tunic fresh around him. Lithe and young she made him, ruddy with sun, his jawline clean, the beard no longer gray upon his chin, and she withdrew when she had done. Then Lord Odysseus reappeared, and his son was thunderstruck. Fear in his eyes, he looked down and away as though it were God, and whispered, "Stranger, you are no longer what you were just now. Your cloak is new, even your skin. You are one of the gods who rule the sweep of heaven. Be kind to us, and we'll make you fair oblation, and gifts of hammered gold. Have mercy on us." The noble and enduring man replied, "No God. Why take me for a god? No, no. I am that father whom your boyhood lacked and suffered pain for lack of. I am he." Held back too long, the tears ran down his cheeks as he embraced his son. Only Telemachus, uncomprehending, wild with incredulity, cried out, "You cannot be my father, Odysseus. Meddling spirits conceived this trick to twist a knife in me. No man of woman born could work these wonders by his own craft, unless a god came into it with ease to turn him young or old at will. I swear you were in rags and old, and here you stand like one of the immortals." Odysseus brought his ranging mind to bear, and said, "This is not princely, to be swept away by wonder at your father's presence. No other Odysseus will ever come, for he and I are one, the same. His bitter fortune and his wanderings are mine. 20 years gone, and I am back again, on my own island." Then throwing his arms around this marvel of a father, Telemachus began to weep. Salt tears rose from the wells of longing in both men, and cries burst from both as keen and fluttering as those of the great taloned hawk, whose nestlings farmers take before they fly. So helplessly they cried, pouring out tears, and might have gone on weeping so until sundown. The Beggar and the Faithful Dog. Telemachus returns to the family compound and is greeted tearfully by his mother Penelope and his old nurse Euryclea. A soothsayer has told his mother that Odysseus is alive and in Ithaca. However, Telemachus does not report that he has seen his father. The suspense builds as Odysseus, once again disguised as a beggar, returns to his home accompanied only by the swineherd. He has been away for 20 years. Only one creature recognizes him. While he spoke, an old hound lying near pricked up his ears and lifted up his muzzle. This was Argos, trained as a puppy by Odysseus, but never taken on a hunt before his master sailed for Troy. The young man afterward hunted wild goats with him, and hare, and deer, but he had grown old in his master's absence. Treated as rubbish now, he lay at last upon a mass of dung before the gates, manure of mules and cows piled there until field hands could spread it on the king's estate. Abandoned there and half destroyed with flies, old Argos lay. But when he knew he heard Odysseus' voice nearby, he did his best to wag his tail, nose down, with flattened ears, having no strength to move nearer his master. And the man looked away, wiping a salt tear from his cheek, but he hid this from Eumaeus. Then he said, "I marvel that they leave this hound to lie here in the dung pile. He would have been a fine dog from the look of him, though I can't say as to his power and speed when he was young. You find the same good build in house dogs, table dogs landowners keep all for style." And you replied, Eumaeus, "A hunter owned him, but the man is dead in some far place. If this old hound could show the form he had when Lord Odysseus left him, going to Troy, you'd see him swift and strong. He never shrank from any savage thing he'd brought to bay in the deep woods, on the scent no other dog kept up with him. Now, misery has him in leash. His owner died abroad, and here the women slaves will take no care of him. You know how servants are, without a master. They have no will to labor or excel. For Zeus, who views the wide world, takes away half the manhood of a man. That day he goes into captivity and slavery." Eumaeus crossed the court and went straight forward into the Megaron among the suitors. But death and darkness in that instant closed the eyes of Argos, who had seen his master, Odysseus, after 20 years.